Mario and jumping go together like macaroni and cheese, but for the first time in 28 years, Mario didn't jump a single time when Marbler beat Super Mario 64. Why Marbler enjoys plain macaroni we'll never know, and this run is only possible because of a number of glitches, so let's start at the beginning and see what makes this impossible run possible. The first thing we need to establish is what counts as an A press, and the simple answer is anything that causes the button to be pressed. But since Marbler disabled his A button and is using an input display, we don't have to worry about weird situations like half A presses. This run is pure unadulterated no A button. This means tricks like backwards long jumps are off limits, so there won't be any skipping through star doors, meaning we need a minimum of 70 stars to complete the run. With this in mind, only levels that are possible to be beaten in 0 A presses are viable candidates for the route. So stars like Elevator Tour in the Volcano aren't included since those are tasks only, and this also means that entire levels like Tick-Tock Clock are off limits since there's no way of entering them, which brings us to the biggest question. If you can't jump, how do you collect stars? Luckily, there are 3 ways to get height without jumping: performing a dive or rollout with B, dropping down to the star from a higher area, and improvising. Dives and rollouts are used a lot throughout the run, as they have just enough height to get you up some ledges and are the only way to enter Princess's Secret Slide and other stages like Tall Tall Mountain and Snowman's Land, as a well-timed rollout has just enough height to barely clear the ledge. Most stars are high enough where Mario can't collect them by walking into them, but performing a running dive or rollout will get enough height, so easy stars like King Bob-ombs and Koopa the Quicks that require running to the top of the level are easy candidates for being routed into the run. But what about something trickier? If we look at Big Boo's Haunt red coin star, we see a few problems. The first is that 2 of the red coins are at the top of bookcases and close to the ceiling, so dive rolls and dropping from above are off the table, and the second problem is that the red coin star spawns on the second level of the Boo house with no apparent way up. To get the reds above the bookcases, we need to use method number 3, improvising, and for the first, we'll bounce off a Boo to get the height we need, but the second coin is a lot further away, so instead, we precisely position 2 Boos so that we can make a bouncy bridge all the way to the coin, then do a ground pound which gives us just enough height to grab it. This strat involves a lot of pausing to adjust for specific stick angles, with pausing also being used for movement setups, and watching this type of gameplay can be jarring. So whenever you see this symbol in the corner, it means I've edited out some pause buffering. The other red coins aren't too bad comparatively, but this does leave getting up to the second level, which requires its own trick as the stairs are animating into position, and that's vertical speed conversion, or VSC. It's possible to store vertical speed when moving on a slope and when an object is pushing Mario up, so by doing a rollout and putting the stick to neutral, the vertical displacement from the stairs when they're animating is stored. To reactivate the vertical speed, you need to get into midair without using any actions that the game counts as moving Mario, and luckily, a punch with no control stick input passes this check, so by punching off the stairs, the VSC will give you 26 vertical speed as soon as Mario is in freefall. Not only does this unlock the red coin star, but it also grants access to enough coins to grab the 100 coin star as well. But what about situations where you need to get a lot of vertical height? Take the mysterious mountainside star in Tall Tall Mountain. To get this star the intended way, you need to go to the top of the mountain, drop into the slide level and complete it, then get dumped into the area with the star. In the speedrun, this is skipped with a strat called Breezeless, where you perform a series of jumps and barely land on the platform. But since Breezeless is off the table and doing the slide takes a lot of time, what do you think we do instead? If your answer was to use a Chuckya to get pushed over the edge and drop into the star, then you're right. Since the ledge hangs over the star platform, it's difficult to fall off and do a rollout into the star. Instead, something called the HOLP is exploited. HOLP stands for Held Object Last Position, and as the name describes, it updates the last position of whatever object Mario is holding. But the object Mario is holding isn't the real object. Due to the game being old, having Mario hold a real object was difficult, so instead, they programmed him to hold a fake object that switches places with the real one the frame it's picked up. The real object remains stationary and stops getting rendered, with the fake object being what the HOLP is applied to. And when the fake object is thrown, the real object is teleported to the HOLP, which results in it pushing Mario due to its collision interacting with him, and in this case, it pushes us off the ledge with enough momentum momentum to dive into the star. The Chuckya interaction is an easy application of the Hulp, as it's only exploiting something that was semi-intended to happen in-game. For some particularly difficult stars, we need to combine the Hulp with other glitches. So let's look at the first 2 stars of Whomp's Fortress, which require this video's sponsor Brilliant to fully understand. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of different courses in programming, AI, math, and data analysis. Learning a little bit each day, whether it's for personal or professional growth, is very important, and Brilliant helps you build knowledge with fun lessons that only take a few minutes each day, helping you create a useful habit and build problem-solving skills in specific topics through interactive problems, the exact opposite of mindless scrolling. Hands-on problem-solving helps you build a foundation to work towards more complex topics, a proven learning method that's 6 times more effective than passively watching lectures. If you're curious about large language models, Brilliant has a course that covers how they work, where you explore how they build vocabulary and choose their words. You'll also compare different models and understand the importance of training data by comparing models trained on Taylor Swift lyrics to others trained on cookbooks. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for 30 days, visit brilliant.org/Abyssoft or click the link in the description, where you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. And with that, let's return to the first 2 stars of Whomp's Fortress. Both of these stars make use of a Hulp, but they also require other glitches, so we first need to unlock the metal cap before we can execute them. The reason we need the metal cap is so we can trigger a glitch called Hat in Hand, where Mario holds his hat, but this isn't just a visual glitch, it has a special interaction with the Hulp. While Hat in Hand is active, any new object that Mario grabs won't be rendered, and the only time the Hulp gets updated is when the fake object is rendered, resulting in the Hulp not being updated while Hat in Hand is active. So if there's no Hulp, what happens when you throw the fake object and the game needs to switch in the real object? In this case, it uses 2 values, the origin coordinates for the level if Mario has never held something, or the last location that Mario was rendered holding something. So what was that last location? Before entering Whomp's Fortress, Marbler took a detour into Cool Mountain and forced the Hulp to be at the bottom of the level by doing the most evil thing in Mario 64, jumping off the edge of the map while holding the baby penguin. The game won't clear these Hulp coordinates until he holds another object so he can carry them from level to level, and with the Hat in Hand glitch, it continues being stored until he throws the object. But the glitches aren't done yet. He still needs to clone the falling bridge platform. Cloning is a glitch mechanic that lets Mario grab an object during a 2-frame window as it's unloading. So if a Bob-omb is grabbed as it explodes, Mario will be holding a glitched Bob-omb, and because of this, the game can put new objects that spawn into the level in Mario's hands, like coins from a line and Goombas from a trio. This glitched held item is special because it doesn't have code for being held or what to do when it's dropped or thrown, so it will exist in the world forever. However, it does have code for handling its own behavior and status, which means Mario can interact with it a single time before it runs the code to update its status, at which point it becomes useless. So, how do you know what Mario will be holding after grabbing an unloaded object? This is a great question, and the answer is it's incredibly complicated and would take more time than this entire video to explain. All you need to know is that through the magic of punch grabbing, Mario is able to load objects into the held item slot that he shouldn't be able to hold, and that's how he gets the falling platform as a held item to clone. With the falling platform now in hand, we then send it to the Hulp, which is at the bottom of the level. When this happens, the game thinks that Mario is still standing on it for 1 frame after it's been sent, but that's all we need because he is then rotated according to the distance between the platform it thinks he's standing on and the actual platform at the Hulp. This gives him a ton of height, and with the proper angle, it sends him right into the star, with this same trick being used for the next star as well. After he collects a few more stars, he's then at the easiest level in the run, Bowser in the Fire Sea, which only takes 78 hours to complete. Okay, maybe I lied when I said it was the easiest. In Fire Sea, you don't have access to a Chuckya or any use of Hulp or cloning that can get you above this pole, and previously, it was one of the mandatory A presses in the run. But there is a trick that's been known about for a while that can bypass the pole, and Marbler was the first person crazy enough to route it into a run. There's a bug with the processor on the Wii Virtual Console where it has a problem when converting one data structure to another, and a very small amount of data is lost as it does this. The platforms floating in the lava are set to a sine wave which is affected by this, so each time the error occurs, their position gets rounded closer to 0. In this level, the bottom of the stage has negative height values, so instead of the platform lowering, it rises, but very slowly. So slow, in fact, that this would normally take 8 days to get you to the next platform. but Marbler did something that cut this time in half. Remember the vertical speed conservation from Big Boo's haunt? Well, it turns out you don't just need a surface that's rising beneath Mario for it to work. You can use Mario rising through a surface as well. The platform Mario is standing on doesn't have collision from underneath, so by lava boosting under it, you clip through and come to a rest, with the remaining vertical height getting stored by the VSC. So instead of having to wait for the platform to rise the entire way, you can release the VSC by punching off the platform and getting a boost up to the cage. This saved Marbler 4.5 days of waiting, and after a Bowser fight, he's only 21 stars away from unlocking the endless staircase, so he heads to Wet Dry World. The gimmick for this level is tied to the way you enter it. The higher you jump into the painting, the higher the water in the course. With a rollout, we can only ever enter at the lowest water setting, so we need to improvise in some creative ways for a lot of the stars, and Express Elevator and Top of the Town are two of the hardest. Top of the Town normally involves having the water level set to its highest, then climbing to the top of the course before jumping on a plank and making your way to the star. But we can't do any of this. Instead, heave hose are used to get to the top, then our old friend Chuckya is picked up and thrown onto the plank where he then grabs us, with the next part being pure RNG, as Chuckya has a 50% chance of throwing us onto the plank, so half the time, Mario gets yeeted. If we win the coin flip, we then roll out to break open the star, and unfortunately, it's just high enough that we can't dive or roll out to grab it. So we need to bring Chuckya to the rotating platform and have him throw us into the star, which is another 50% chance. Marbler failed this trick and had to reset the stage 3 times, then finally won the double coin flip on his 4th attempt. But the 4th star in this world, Express Elevator, is far worse. For this star, you need to bring the water to its 3rd lowest level, then ride the elevator down so you can go inside the cage and ride it up to the star. But we can't do any of this, so we improvise. We grab a Chuckya and exploit the Hulk once again, but with yet another twist. This time, the camera is moved so that Mario and the Chuckya aren't being rendered, and while off screen, the Hulk doesn't get updated. We then throw the Chuckya, but pause during the animation at certain times. This is because when Mario throws something, he reaches behind his head to wind up. And by pausing here, Mario gets rendered, which updates the Hulk to be behind him, so when we unpause, the Chuckya is behind Mario, which lets it immediately grab him. The glitch isn't finished, however. The Chuckya has something called an anchor, which works like a Hulk. When we grabbed the Chuckya originally, the real Chuckya's anchor was set at where it was grabbed, and it won't update until we drop the fake Chuckya. So when we drop it, the real Chuckya is behind the camera, not being rendered, so its anchor doesn't update, and it throws us to the anchor where it was first grabbed. When Mario gets thrown, he lands on the plank above the cage, which lets us drop down and send the elevator to the bottom. We're now in a race to grab Chuckya and bring him to the top before the elevator ascends back up, since we're going to use his collision to push Mario through the wall and onto the elevator. Up next is the most insane glitch of the run, but before that, it's worth going over the timeline of how Marbler arrived at a 0 A-press run. Before Marbler, the previous record was 22 A-presses, with a number of the stars requiring half A-presses. But there were more than 70 stars that could be done in 0 A-presses, so Marbler routed in difficult stars like the ones we saw in Wet Dry World and Whomp's Fortress over ones that require full or half A-presses. Even more than this, Marbler is a trucker, so he's on the road constantly, and he plays in his sleeper between shifts, meaning he learned all of this in one of the most unconventional ways possible. So how did he find the time to string together a 3.5-day run? He took a week off to do this, which means he only had one chance to succeed on the Fire Sea glitch, or he wouldn't have time for another run, and here's what happened.
Oh no. I wasn't watching the height of the platform. Oh no. Oh my god. I wasn't watching the height of the platform.
He thought he may have released the VSC at the bottom of the platform's hover animation, but the height was good and he didn't have to reset, and with that hurdle cleared, the run was almost certain to finish, which brings us to Bowser in the Sky. Previously, this level required 3.5 A-presses, so, for the final time I'll ask, how do you think Marbler solved this problem? If you guessed manipulate a Chuckya to drop down from above, then have it throw him up the course, You're right. Originally, Marbler's goal was to do a 5 or 6 A-press run with all of the A-presses taking place in the Bowser levels, but a player named Zion, who was frustrated by a difficult trick that gets you into the first Bowser pipe, decided to put up a bounty for anyone that found a consistent setup, and a Mario 64 legend named Pannenkoek rose to the challenge. Pannen is a very experienced tasser for Mario 64, and he created a consistent setup for Zion involving a misalignment, a trick that lets Mario ledge grab floors lower than normal when they don't have a wall attached to them. Due to a bug, a lot of floor and wall intersections have a 1x1 unit of floor that doesn't have a wall, so you can use a misalignment to roll or dive into a ledge grab. Marbler was trying the new misalignment strat, and Pannen saw he was struggling, so he devised another setup that was even more consistent. And Pannen's efforts gave Marbler a thought: what if there are other places where misalignments could be used in a setup? One of the problems in the final Bowser level is the blue rectangle platform that moves, as there wasn't any way to get on top of it without an A-press. But Marbler had an idea. What if I include the TAS-only Chuckya drop to eliminate this A-press? After analyzing the TAS, he realized that all of Chuckya's movements are deterministic, which meant that they can be predicted. So by interacting with its activation radius using misalignments, he can make it drop down from above as it tries to grab Mario. It's worth noting that that's a very simplified explanation, but if you succeed, then you have a 1 in 32 chance of the Chuckya throwing you onto the platform. That's very low, especially given the amount of setup it takes, so Marbler worked on the angle and position for a month until he improved the odds to an 18 in 32 chance. This trick is more complicated than a relationship in a Taylor Swift song, as it involves a Hulp setup like in Whomp's Fortress, multiple misalignments, and off-screen interactions like in Wet Dry World. And this is just for the first throw. There's still 2 more that need to be performed. These Chuckya throws are unique because they require tricking the game into thinking Mario is grabbing the Chuckya as a light object instead of a heavy. We won't get into how this is done, but here's why it's important. When Mario throws a heavy object, the real object gets warped to Mario's Y-coordinate, which doesn't produce the interaction we want. But if Mario throws a light object, the real object is teleported to the Hulp's Y-coordinate. So by using the Hulp we set up in Cool Cool Mountain, we can send the Chuckya further in the level to use later. That's a monumental amount of work to save a single A-press, and after a couple more minor tricks, all that's left is the Bowser fight, which is trivial compared to everything else we just saw. It took almost 30 years, but the first run to ever beat Mario 64 without jumping is a historic achievement, and that includes TAS runs. As there have only been TAS created for individual levels, no 70-star 0 A-press run exists for TAS. This is truly the first run. To quote Mario Kart 64 legend VAJ,
"Check this out! I beat the TAS, yo! Second lemon!"
Marbler beat the TAS, yo. Huge thanks to Marbler for help with this video, and I hope to see you in the next exciting episode of Abyssoft Z.